average to crappy teams opportunities to get better very quickly. And it's always been remarkable to me how few take advantage of it. Right? We know even the best general managers don't ace the draft. You can't depend on getting better through the draft. Even if you have 10 or 11 picks, this year the Dolphins had a bunch of picks. It wasn't a particularly strong draft. They probably got 4 good starters out of it, 4 backups, and 2 or 3 guys that'll wash out. And that would not be a bad draft. But I'll give you an example. Miami went out and got Malik Willis. And I'll get to that in a second. But my initial point is Sam Darnold was available the last 2 years to the whole league. The Vikings and Seahawks, the only 2 teams that aggressively pursued Sam Darnold. How is that possible? In the last 4 years, he is 35-10. That's better than Patrick Mahomes. In fact, it leads the league. He's big, athletic, a big arm. In the last 4 years, he's completed 65% of his throws. Has a passer rating just shy of 100. 74 touchdowns, 30 picks, coachable. Everybody likes him. Sam Darnold doesn't have an enemy in the league. Coachable, took a reasonable salary, available to the sport. Seahawks, Vikings went all in. I mean, they didn't even go all in. They went like mostly in because they didn't give him much money. Tom Brady was 41 years old, 42, and was available to the league. 2 teams. 2. The Chargers, and Tom didn't want to play on the left coast. He didn't. Chargers, Buccaneers went hard after him.
Yeah. I mean, listen, the minimization of who Sam Darnold truly is has always been such a fascinating phenomenon, and how rapidly we jump to attribute success to the team or the coaching staff. It's like we struggle enormously to determine in which direction we want to assign either the credit or the blame, for that matter. And it really all depends on how you feel about the individual before any of the other circumstances unfold. And Sam has consistently been on the negative end of that receiving side. And he was outstanding with the Seattle Seahawks, yet people will still attempt to portray it as if he wasn't a major factor. But here's the reality. Popularity reigns supreme, and Jackson Smith-Njigba appears on the top 10 list of the NFLPA's recent merchandise sales report, while I believe Sam Darnold is ranked around 49th. That gives you a significant answer right there. But before I go any further, Seattle Seahawks fans, please do not forget to subscribe and watch the full-length version of the video. When you do that, viewership numbers go through the roof. Subscriber counts go through the roof. And it's not about chasing views. It's not about chasing subscribers. It's about being able to create Seattle Seahawks content that people genuinely want to watch and discuss so we can continue having the most impartial, grounded, honest conversations about the Seahawks. Watching the full-length video makes such a huge difference, and I would really appreciate it. But yeah, to me, and I said this a couple of months ago at this point, the Seattle Seahawks are the perfect illustration of understanding that you need a contingency plan and how to make a change and adjust when necessary, because the original plan was not to have Sam Darnold. The original plan was to keep DK Metcalf and Geno Smith. That was the initial blueprint. That plan was not going to be able to materialize, and they pivoted. They pivoted and then made shrewd moves from that point onward, and they understood that they were capable of evaluating the team they had. That's why they wanted to keep DK and Geno, because they thought, we have the ability to win here. We have the ability to be a fantastic team. We're putting this thing together right now. But then, obviously, they had to change course. And they said, well, let's just go to the rookie. Let's just start a first-year player? No, we know with Sam we can win a lot of games. We know that in order to secure Sam, we're going to have to pay him a substantial amount. Of course, relative to quarterback salaries, it's a significant discount. But it's still money that if Sam simply wasn't good enough, it would be not only an annoying situation for the Seahawks, but it would damage their Super Bowl window. Obviously, they want a Super Bowl, so they have a Super Bowl window, and I'm looking at it through the lens of 2025. They're evaluating, hey, we have a Super Bowl window. Paying Sam roughly $100 million for him to be a quarterback who isn't that good. I don't want to say you're ruining your Super Bowl window, but you're hurting it tremendously. You're definitely taking a hammer to it. So you have to be able to properly evaluate what you have and then be willing to make those decisions. The Dallas Cowboys genuinely had a Super Bowl window. I'm probably going to mess up the years here. 2021, 2022, and 2023, I think it was when they won 12 games 3 years in a row, 12 plus wins 3 consecutive seasons. They had a genuine Super Bowl window. What do I think of it? It's always difficult to discuss the Cowboys because everyone overhypes them so much. So were they overhyped then? I believe they were overhyped, is what I'm saying. I believe they were not as good as people tried to pretend. Everyone always keeps acting like they were these bona fide #1 Super Bowl contenders, and I don't see it that way. But it was a Super Bowl window where if they had just taken that next step, if they had been able to properly evaluate where they were and what they needed, there was a move or two available. They could have acquired Derrick Henry. They could have acquired Saquon Barkley. There were moves for them to make to take that next step. 1, they were unwilling to make them, and 2, they improperly evaluated what they had. And that's not what the Seahawks have done. And Sam Darnold is the poster child of that right there. That's where the Buccaneers are. Cole. And brought up the Bucs obviously with Tom Brady. And it's like they don't have this clarity with Baker about what their Super Bowl window is and where they stand. It seems like they don't really know what to do in this moment. They apparently want to pay Baker a lot less money than Baker wants, and that makes things tricky. And listen, the Minnesota Vikings improperly evaluated what they had. They were technically in a legitimate Super Bowl window. They improperly evaluated who Sam Darnold was, who J.J. McCarthy was, and the decisions that needed to follow. That has ruined a lot. That even ruined 2024. Weren't there other moves they could have made to improve that roster and make them even better? Wasn't there another big play they could have made in 2024 to take that big swing? Of course there was. Just go back in time and look at all the other players that were available. Again, in 2025, couldn't they have kept Sam Darnold and then gone out and gotten Davante Adams? Of course they could have. Of course they could have. Not Justin Jefferson. They could have built essentially that Los Angeles Rams offense. The offense that led Matthew Stafford to win the MVP. Boom. There you are. They could have kept Cooper Kupp or acquired Cooper Kupp. There were moves there. They did not make them. They improperly evaluated what they had, and they made the wrong decisions. That's what it gets boiled down to. And that's why, operationally, I think the Seahawks deserve a ton of credit. But I think it's deeper than the layer Colin is presenting because it wasn't just the vision itself. It was understanding how to pivot, how to say, this is our plan. You know what? This is not our plan anymore. Now we have to change, but still understand where we stand. And the perfect example of this is they were a really good team. They were winning, and then they went out and got Shaheed, right? That move right there. You can make the argument, listen, football is the ultimate team sport, so it's a collection of everything, but you can argue that even a move like that, you don't win the Super Bowl without. I'm not saying he was the reason they won the Super Bowl, but he was a major contributor, and it's hard to just take away any piece. They needed every piece they got. And yet they easily could have said, no, we're going to stay the course. We're good. We're fine. And they didn't, because they were able to properly understand, hey, we can win a Super Bowl. That's exactly what Jerry Jones simply did not do. Jerry Jones could have gotten A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry at that point. I mean, seriously, the window was right there. He could have done that. He didn't. He could have gone out and gotten Saquon Barkley. He didn't. The Minnesota Vikings could have. They didn't. They could have kept Sam. Gotten Saquon. Gotten Davante. They could have built an incredible team because they would have had Sam Darnold at a massive discount. The Buffalo Bills could have gotten Rashid Shaheed. They didn't. Even moving on from Kenneth Walker is a very specific calculation. It's an understanding of who your team is and what you have. And I've said this a million times because, again, I know a lot of people were not watching the Seattle Seahawks. How do I know? Because I was watching them, and I was producing content, and I can see the comments from people who clearly are not watching them. The Seahawks were not a team that everyone was saying, I can't wait to watch the Seahawks. That was not the case. People were not lining up to watch Sam Darnold. And when they were watching, they were looking through a lens of, oh, this team isn't that good. Oh, Sam isn't that good. This team isn't bad. They're going to be bad. They're a pumpkin. It was constantly through that narrow, foggy lens. And I was looking at it from a very clear lens, trying to evaluate them week after week after week. So you have the rest of the league, especially a lot of Chiefs fans, all of a sudden they became the biggest Kenneth Walker fans. All of a sudden they're saying, oh man, Kenneth Walker, I'm taking him over Saquon, Derrick Henry, Bijan. I'm taking him over everyone. And I thought, what? Okay, I guess. But the stacked boxes, okay, whatever you say, man. I know you only watch the Chiefs. It's okay. So again, it's a misunderstanding of how this team was constructed, how they won games, how they executed. But they watched the Super Bowl and they saw Sam not do too much, didn't need to do much. They saw a great defense. They saw Kenneth Walker run, and they thought, all right, baby. There you go. But this all starts with properly evaluating what you have and what you need. That's what it comes down to. So Colin is talking about how all these other players were available, and it's just that there was a lack of understanding. That's what it's born out of. It's a lack of understanding of what you have and what you need. That's what it gets boiled down to. People genuinely believed that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were Super Bowl contenders last year. Nick had a whole take, I'm a Super Bowl contender, and Baker's the MVP frontrunner. And I said, you are not properly evaluating this team right now. And then even after the Bucs beat the Seahawks, that's when everyone was ready to jump on me. What do you have to say now? What do you have to say now? And I responded, what do I have to say now? I saw Sam Darnold and the Seahawks be elite. I saw amazing pressure from Todd Bowles, and I saw the Seahawks play an offense-defense. Their defense was uncharacteristically awful, was terrible. Mike McDonald was beside himself. I saw an outlier, a defensive outlier. I saw the norm for the Bucs. I saw an outlier, ultra-elevated, near-perfect performance from Baker Mayfield, something I'm not going to bank on. And I saw a bizarre trick play that made me want to lose my mind with the Seahawks. So when you connect those dots, I still feel really great about the Seahawks because they were clearly a collection of things that made you say, what the heck was that? And I watched that game unfold. I didn't just go strictly by the outcome. Oh no, the Seahawks lost and Sam Darnold fumbled. Oh, he's bad. Oh, Baker, he's clearly the MVP and Super Bowl frontrunner now. And what ended up aging more correctly? It was my take. We know that. We know that. And it's because you have to properly evaluate what you're seeing. You have to properly understand, it's why it's not just you either win or lose, that's it, that's all that matters at the end of the day. It is all that matters. But it's not all that matters in how you get there. Put that on a shirt. Put that on a bumper sticker. Properly evaluate. That's what it gets boiled down to. So I love to continue to marinate in these types of stories and these types of things because there's a lack of understanding of who Sam Darnold is or even who the Seattle Seahawks are. And you can tell that because, again, I'm not going to put all my eggs in the basket of merchandise sales and those rankings, but it does show you where people are, what people are watching, and what people are looking for. And when I combine that with the media takes, with the comments that I read and all of that, it does start to paint a clearer picture and an evaluation. And yeah, I think realistically speaking, if we're really being honest with ourselves, I don't know how far back I can go, but probably at least 10 plus years if you real. Do the math, it's the Eagles a couple of times, the Rams, the Patriots obviously, and the Broncos with Manning, and obviously Mahomes. I'd say depending on how far you ultimately go back, the Seattle Seahawks and Sam Darnold were probably the sneakiest team to win the Super Bowl. They were probably the team that people struggled to understand. People obviously pushed back on the Eagles winning and how they dominated the Chiefs, but it was still, well, this is a stacked team, Saquon, Devontae, AJ, the best defensive line in the history of the world. People could still wrap their heads around it, even if not fully because of Jalen. But I think it's just a little different. Obviously Mahomes, Brady, Stafford gets to LA, Triple Crown winner, Cooper Kupp, Sean McVay, everyone has always been ultra high on Sean McVay from the jump. I think unless you were really doubting, people kind of doubted Matthew Stafford. I think anyone who truly understood anything about football could appreciate how great Stafford is, that the Detroit Lions were just a poorly run franchise and all of that. So I don't think that really caught people off guard, honestly. And then again, we have Sam Darnold and the Seattle Seahawks right there. And I just think they embody that for sure, because even the Eagles won in 2024, they got to the Super Bowl in 2022 with Jalen Hurts. We saw that performance. There was something to build off of in a way that you just weren't able to do with Sam Darnold, Clint Cobb, Ayak, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Cooper Kupp who was cast aside, and a defense that's elite. But listen, I think we're kind of having the pendulum swing back to appreciating defenses. But I don't think people are still really going into a season saying, oh, this team's going to be great because they have an awesome defense. I don't think that's super front-facing as much. I think we still elevate the Sean McVays and the Shanahans. Put it this way, at the end of the day. This is just my personal opinion and experience. I think the majority of people would still pick Shanahan over Mike Macdonald if they were starting a franchise. Everyone's fired and you're going to hire someone. I think more people would pick Kyle Shanahan than Mike Macdonald because of offense, because of quarterback. So you even have that aspect. I think the Seahawks would have been more popular, and they would feel more momentum behind them and more confidence in their ability not only to have won the Super Bowl going into 2025, but then to be able to repeat if Macdonald were the offensive head coach. If it were reversed and it was Shanahan, that type of situation, we would be saying, oh my gosh, did you see what Macdonald did with Sam? Pretty much the very similar energy we saw with Kevin O'Connell and Sam Darnold. We couldn't separate the two. It was Kevin O'Connell and Sam. That's why they were willing to get rid of Sam, because they thought, it's Kevin O'Connell. It's not Sam Darnold. Right. So, yeah. UST will always find it interesting how people interpret these types of things and how it ultimately lands for them and just how they make sense of them. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you all think about Sam Darnold, the Seattle Seahawks, the moves that the Seahawks ultimately made to build their Super Bowl team, and how Colin's saying plenty of other teams could have done it, but the Seahawks actually had the vision, the ability to pivot, to have a plan B? Let me know your thoughts. I read every single comment, whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get into some discussions. Let's get into some debates. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. Please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.